I'm JG, welcome back to Music Forever, where today we are reviewing the newest album from Incubus, 8. Incubus are one of my favorite bands of all time, and I know that might be an uncommon thing to say because while this group does have some popularity within the alternative rock, scene, they're not a super popular band by any means, and there's, often overlooked in conversation, at least in my opinion, based on what I've seen around. I have encountered some, big Incubus fans, but for the most part, they're not as common as, big fans of some other, more popular alternative rock bands. There were many factors that, attracted me to Incubus as a band. One of those included, playing around with a variety of sounds, such as their early albums were more funk metal oriented, and they moved to a more alternative metal kind of sound, then eventually alternative rock, with, lots of different influences and types of sounds thrown in there throughout all their different albums. I also really like this group's lyrics. I just found myself gravitating towards them as I listened to their projects. Now, those are all the things I like with this group. However, if I had any complaints, it would just be that they haven't put out a lot of material in recent times. The last album I really liked from this group was Light Grenades, that was released back in 2006, and they've had one studio album released since then. I believe it was If Not Now, Then When, that's what it's called. The fact that I can't really remember the name kind of says more about my opinion on the album than I guess anything I can really say. I just thought it was kind of a boring project. There were some songs I liked. There really weren't any parts I disliked, but for the most part it was just kind of forgettable in my opinion. And that was released back in 2011 if I'm not mistaken. And that was only a few months before I became a fan of this group. Really, I began discovering music around that time. And so, throughout most of my time as a music fan, I haven't seen really much new Incubus material released. Now, they did release the Trust Fall Side A EP back in 2015, which the original plan was to release that EP, which was 4 songs, and they would release the side B to it, which would be another 4 songs or so, I guess. But that never materialized. They said it was just going to come out later on in 2015. That never happened. Then I heard it was going to come out in 2016. That never happened. And then we got an announcement a few months ago that 8 was going to happen. So I don't know if side B is ever going to happen or if this is just they had enough ideas to make an album and that's why this exists. So right off the bat, I was just really excited to get some new Incubus material in general, just because, I wanted to hear what they were doing now. It's just been a long time since we really gotten an album from them. And when I heard the lead single from this project, Nimble Bastard, a few months ago, I liked it. It reminded me a lot of their album, The Crow Left of the Murder, which, despite some people not liking it, I actually do really like that album. I remember when I first heard that project, I was obsessed with it for a period of time. It's not a perfect album, it's not my favorite Incubus album, but it is a very good album. And the lead single from this project was reminding me a lot of that album, which was a good thing. And I know I intended to do a track review of that originally, but I got sick, so that never, happened. I'm just going to talk about it here, and I'm happy that, maybe that worked out for the best, because this album version of the song, I believe, is different from the original single version that was released. There's definitely more electronic elements thrown in here. And by electronic elements, I mean, DJ Kilmore's traditional kind of electronic samplings, DJ scratching kind of stuff, not like modern EDM electronic elements. And I know throughout this project, his electronic influences are more present here, I guess you could say. It's either that or it's Skrillex's involvement in this project. Yes, Skrillex. And, before anyone out there gets a bit concerned, Skrillex, I do like some of his stuff that he's done, some of his older material, the more aggressive electronic stuff that he's done, not really his newer tropical house kind of stuff I'm not really a fan of. And he does do a lot of production here on this album. He's a friend of the band, apparently, so he did produce much of this project. And I do like his production touches, the more electronic-leaning stuff here. It's not super Skrillex-y, if you know what I mean by that. So if anyone out there is a bit concerned about that, you don't really have to be. You might not even notice that he's present here on this album. I think he does a good job in bringing back some of those electronic elements that we see on Incubus's earlier works. It's something that was kind of missing on their previous efforts. Now, I know Kilmore was doing a lot of piano playing and stuff like that on the previous efforts instead of, the DJ scratching and stuff like that. But even still, despite the fact that I liked his piano and keyboard parts, I do really like the scratching and all that kind of sound. It's a really original thing that Incubus has going for them, that they have a DJ, but they're not super, 90s new metal-y, like Limp Bizkit. Something just, they were able to do that kind of DJ thing in a more original, more tasteful way. Alright, so coming back from that detour I just made there, the track itself I think is very good. It has a lot of energy to it. It's very catchy as far as the chorus goes. The electronic elements I was just talking about, they add a lot of additional texture to the track that wasn't there on the original version. And initially, I just liked the original version. I didn't think it was super special or anything like that, but with the extra texture added from the electronic, DJ kind of elements, I think it's really cool. It's definitely one of the highlights on the album, in my opinion. As well as the opening track, No Fun, which just has a really kind of fun energy to it, ironically enough. Definitely a really good album opener, had something that really had me hooked here. Despite these good few tracks that we get at the beginning, this album isn't without its flaws, and there are a few major flaws here. One of them really being that the album feels a bit, directionless, I guess you could say. Not that it sounds inconsistent throughout, but I just felt like with Incubus's previous projects, they all had a very distinct personality to them, whether that be defined by the sound of the project or just the lyrical direction and the concept. You could kind of tell that tracks were meant to be on the album. Like, you can't compare tracks from Make Yourself to tracks on Light Grenade. They all sound like they belong in their own respective project. Here, the tracks just feel more like the feel of it is kind of just general alternative rock, and it just doesn't really stand out as much as their previous efforts, in my opinion. The fact that the album title is just, simply titled 8 for their 8th studio album, and that the album cover is so, basic, doesn't really help with giving this album a personality of its own. Another problem I have with this is that the lyrics aren't as standout as on previous Incubus efforts. As I mentioned before, one of the things that really attracted me to Incubus were the lyrics, which were kind of quirky, insightful into just life in general. It kind of varied from project to project. Of course, Make Yourself was kind of focused on, making yourself, kind of that whole concept. And, those kind of lyrics are present throughout some of their other works. There was some social commentary on albums like Curl Left of the Murder, stuff like that I really enjoyed. But here, the lyrics just aren't as stand out. They're not bad by any means. It's just, not really, you're just there, not really anything special. Despite these flaws, the album still has some great tracks in it, such as the track Loneliest, which leans with a more electronic, hinge to it, and not in a modern EDM kind of sense like I was saying before. Even though this is probably the track that comes closest to it, there's just some synths that go on throughout this track that I think are really stand out. They provide a personality to the track that's different from any other track on this album, and different from any other song in Incubus' back catalog either, which makes it, a standout. The track Love in a Time of Surveillance is also a highlight in my opinion. It reminds me a lot of A Curl Left of the Murder, which I know I praised before. It has a bit more aggressive sound compared to the rest of the project, and it's a bit weirder leaning, which I like. It makes it stand out in my opinion. The track Make No Sound in the Digital Force that follows this is an instrumental track. It's also really cool. I like the way it kind of leads into the final track on the project, Throw Out the Map, which is just a more upbeat kind of song. Really digging it for that reason. In my opinion, the opening 2 tracks on this project and the last 3 are some of the strongest. I also want to talk about the track When I Became a Man, and this track is probably my least favorite on the project because I just don't know why it's here. It's like a less than a minute long joke track that, it has an older sound to it, but it doesn't mesh well with anything else on this project. It just really stands out in the middle of this, album. I don't know why it's there. It just breaks up the continuity and the flow of everything else that's going on around it for this almost minute-long joke track. It doesn't really add to anything, and all it does is, break up what's already going on. It's not really funny. It doesn't really add to anything. It kind of reminds me of some of the more comedic-leaning interludes that were on the Enjoy Incubus EP, except, not as funny, and those kind of fit with the lyrics that Incubus were doing at the time, the more crazy, kind of drugged out, like insane lyrics. But here, where Incubus have a bit more refined of a sound, something like this doesn't make as much sense in my opinion. And overall, it's just kind of a waste of time. I feel like they only included it to reach like the 40-minute mark on this project because, this project is fairly short, but I feel like the length is alright, but this song still could have been left off. So overall, this is a decent Incubus project in my opinion. Definitely an improvement from, the quality of their previous project, and by existing at all. I mean, I'm just happy that this album exists, to an extent that Incubus are, still making music. I'm happy about that, and I'm happy with the good tracks that we got here. Such as, the first 2 tracks here and the last 3, some of the other tracks in between are also good. But, as I said before, it's not really as standout as their previous efforts in my opinion. I just feel like if they, come back with some other great records, this could easily get lost in the mix of some of their less important records. However, if you're an Incubus fan, I think you need to check this out. And by an Incubus fan, I mean a fan of most of their work, not just one of those people who likes only their funk metal stuff. Because let's be honest, they haven't done that sound in almost 20 years now, and I don't think they're going to be doing it anymore, like ever. It's not going to happen, guys. Just get over it. But overall, yeah, if you're a fan of alternative rock, this might be something that you are interested in. But for the most part, it's not something that, is to die for, I guess you could say. Not like some of their earlier efforts that are just, some of my favorite albums of all time. This is just okay, but okay is alright for right now, I guess you could say, for Incubus. I think that sums up all my opinions pretty well. Thanks for watching. If you have anything you'd like to say, leave it down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please leave a like on it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any other future reviews. Thanks for watching, and stay golden.